Nah, people, Joel Benjamin 528 here, aka Big Money Benjamin. Welcome to the watch party. Y'all see what it is. The Rig from the Start watch party. As you know, I went there personally myself when they came to New York. In the description or in the bio of the video, you can get your own digital copy if you like. So I seen it. I was like, okay, yeah. They posted up on YouTube. Somebody posted up on YouTube. So I was like, yeah. But go support the team that made the documentary. Excuse me, XRP Unleashed, now known as Rigged from the Start. So, salute to my international audience, salute to my domestic audience, salute to my YouTube audience, salute to my Rumble audience. When you come in, don't be rude. At least say hi. It's not going to kill you. Also, before we show the video, let me tell you, there is certain things you should be getting. There is certain things you should be getting up on ASAP. So after this video play, we're going to break it down, give our take on it. This is amazing. So anyone who haven't seen it, come in now. You should be getting your breakfast or now breaking your fast. Or if you just finished working out like myself, sit down, take it all in. I see a few people here. Lester, salute to you. I see you. Shahid, salute to you. Juju Man L, salute to you. These are the people that came in early on the check-in. Also, anybody who haven't, I'm telling y'all are missing out. Anyone who haven't gotten it yet. I know a few people have gotten it. Anyone who missed out on Crypto Pro Life latest course, okay, there's certain things on there like the NFTs to get. I don't want to brag, okay, but I seen what they did, and just on the NFTs alone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, not just ETH NFTs, not just base NFT, not just XRP NFTs, and then other things that they had on there. I was like, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. So when you contact cryptoprolife@gmail.com, make sure you tell them Joel Benjamin 528 referred me. Again, make sure you let them know Joel Benjamin 528 referred you. Okay? You want to get a discount? Make sure you say Joel Benjamin 528 referred you. Don't say I ain't tell you. And I noticed some of y'all like to be cheap. Y'all want to be ahead of the game, but y'all don't want to do what you need to do. Y'all don't want to do what it takes. Well, that's on you. So, welcome to the watch party. Make sure you contact cryptoprolife@gmail.com. Get that course. A lot of y'all is going to feel it because I'm going to come on here probably, 2 months, 3 months from now. And I'll be like, look, they said it's certain stuff on there. I'm not going to say no more. Yeah, I'm going to say it's certain stuff on there. When they first dropped it was so easy to get. Now they're making it so hard. When you go to get said items or whatever the case is, but it is what it is. So I just had to put that out there because I don't want nobody to be like, oh, you didn't tell us. So let's get into the watch party. So as you know, Ripple XRP was going through a hell of a lawsuit with the SEC. So you have Fruition Productions during that time made this documentary, and oh my gosh, I know I was one of the first person. Y'all gotta remember when I was in my car, I made the video, and I was saying, don't be surprised if you find out ETH is part of this harboring XRP. And sure enough, the documents came out, and we seen that was the case. Now, I also said there's a bank working with ETH at the time. I didn't know. I was digging up. Come to find out, it was Chase Bank. So I was right about that. Now I'm telling y'all something else. Remember, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. It's not about who did what to who anymore. It's about how we gonna get this money. And one of the ways, and one of the things that I know for a fact, watch, mark my words, you're going to see not just Chase Bank, because remember I told you Chase is buying up mad XRP, but Chase is a huge owner of Ethereum. Okay? You're going to see XRP and Ethereum team up. Remember I told you that. You will end up seeing XRP and Ethereum team up. Also, all those Bitcoin maxis, I'm going to show you what I need to get. I got to get a cup for y'all to catch y'all tears. Because the fastest way to send Bitcoin is on the XRP ledger. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. Okay? Anybody who didn't see XRP was the chosen one, you had to be stupid or stupid. Either one, take your pick. Sorry, I ain't got the light on. I was just like, it's a watch party. Let me turn the light off, whatever. Anyway. I'm going to share my screen so you see what I see. Please let me know if you could hear. If you could hear this audio when I set it up. Do, do, do. Do. All right, let us begin. Enjoy, people.
There's a massive quantum shift happening. And if you can't see it, you need to look around for just a moment.
It's pretty apparent at this point that we're in a transition.
Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves.
The government responded by money printing, paper backed with paper, a book that will inevitably burst.
Eu toda noite me pergunto por que todos os países estão obrigados a fazer seu comércio lastreado no dólar.
Xi Jinping just back to what he is calling a milestone meeting with Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman after telling Arab leaders on Friday that he wants to buy oil and gas with the Chinese yuan instead of the US dollar.
The dollar's worth a lot less. That's the best way I can put it. It's not the same.
And when they create a lot of money, that devalues our buying power, our purchasing power. That means our dollar's buying less.
It's something everybody's feeling. Food inflation is a very real thing. I think Americans are a little perplexed when they see news reports of inflation coming down, and yet they don't notice any of their prices coming down.
Today we've got some good news. Good news about the economy. For the 6th month in a row, inflation has come down.
You've seen prices go up over the last couple years here with the amount of money that we've printed.
What's happened to this country? What in the world's going on?
All of my belief systems were crumbling.
I had lost my money for the third time. So I had to ask myself a question at that point. There's something wrong with the programming, right? And I started to understand what is going on. Why do I keep going broke? Well, I realized that our system is not designed for us to win.
It was around the COVID time, so I think everyone was really isolated.
I've been researching gold and anything that I can find that would be counter to this fiat system. Up pops this Bitcoin thing.
I was hearing all this talk about Bitcoin. What in the world is a Bitcoin?
I'm right here watching history be made. Bitcoin is now up to $111.
Bitcoin is an electronic online digital currency, was created about 3 years ago, kind of flew under the radar. Now it's starting to actually gain some traction.
Bitcoin crossed above $10,000. 50,000. 72,000.
Bitcoin is the leader of pretty much the entire crypto space.
I got upset and became a Bitcoin maxi.
Bitcoin is a transformational piece of technology.
Somebody created like a new monetary system.
We were told that cryptocurrency is a fraud, that it's used for nefarious activities, it's used for criminals.
People have been deeply opposed to crypto. Criminals, drug traffickers, tax avoidance.
What is cryptocurrency? What is Bitcoin? And so I started to do some social media posts on the actual research I was doing.
This video might be one of the most important lessons if you want to get wealthy in crypto.
And I remove all of the confusion and lack of clarity in crypto to actually make people some money.
Welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news channel, Good Morning Crypto.
There's a lot of fantastic educators and content creators on YouTube. It's helped me a lot in my journey.
These compounding rates that we've seen in crypto are the highest compounding rates I've ever seen in history. As we're changing money and as we're going into the digitization of money, and as we're going into the Internet of Value, as Chris Larson of Ripple says.
You know, a lot of people point to globalization as being, you know, not working for people. And we would say, no, it's not that it's not working, it's just that it's a work in progress, right? It's incomplete.
Truly the most efficient way for me to get money to London today would be to go buy a ticket at the airport here in Toronto and fly in.
Joining me now to discuss is Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple Labs.
Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Good to see you both.
Ripple is a company. It has a CEO. It has offices. It has employees like myself. My name is David Schwartz. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Ripple.
Las Vegas! You guys have fun!
Bitcoin would be perfect if everybody used Bitcoin for everything, but that's unrealistic.
I think we're going to see a dramatic change over the next 10 or even 15 years. XRP is part of the heartbeat of Ripple.
The XRP ledger is a decentralized, distributed ledger. It has a community. It has an ecosystem of participants who use it in various ways, including things like exchanges, wallet providers, and Ripple also uses the XRP ledger.
I look at XRP as what's going to change the way value moves around the planet.
So every XRP transaction costs on the order of 1/10 of a cent, whereas like with something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, the cost would be much higher.
To send, receive, and manage digital value. Here at Ripple, we're building financial solutions that are faster, more transparent, more sustainable, and more efficient. What took days will now take seconds. What was costly will now be more economical. Call it the Internet of Value.
It goes from currency to currency within seconds.
There is something very powerful being built here.
Never been hacked. Very secure.
Revolutionary blockchain technology.
XRP can serve as a bridge asset to the world, financial institutions, central banks, because Ripple's already working.
Bank of America plans to partner with Ripple. Qatar National Bank, they partnered with Ripple to improve cross-border payments.
Every bank in Japan will use XRP by 2025.
I'm going to put some money in this, and I think we're either going to lose all of it or it's going to do something crazy.
They would have globally dominated the entire industry, but for the regulators pulling them back.
SEC is preparing to sue that crypto startup. The asset in question here is called XRP.
We don't need more digital currency.
I will never forget this day the rest of my life. All of a sudden, my text messages start blowing up. My social media starts exploding. Coach JV, why did you get me into XRP?
It's an emergency podcast. Ripple has been sued by the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Listen, if you have Ripple, if you have XRP, be very careful right now because the SEC are suing Ripple Labs.
This is complete and utter bullshit.
The SEC its mandate is to help protect investors.
I got fudded out of the whole project because of this lawsuit. I lost my dream, my hope of buying something really, really solid.
The SEC is trying to capture the digital asset space.
The SEC is really picking winners. It really, I think, sends an ominous sign for innovation around cryptocurrency in the United States.
We're trying to apply 1930s law to modern day blockchain technology.
The law doesn't really recognize what cryptocurrency is right now. And that means that Wall Street can run a little bit amok.
You don't have capitalism anymore. You have, I don't know what you call it, but it's not capitalism.
That we became convinced that this whole case was merely a show.
And he gave a speech saying that Ethereum was not a security. That is what you call an absolute conflict of interest. A member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance.
People's whole retirement investments were upended by a speech.
He's on the phone doing phone calls with Vitalik Buterin.
Charles said the Chinese have been courting Vitalik hard.
He raises an issue that we've discussed in depth, and that's the Chinese control of Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yes. Because I think China wins.
There, that's Killer B roll up.
What XRP Las Vegas has become today, I believe, is a highly interactive conference of people who understand that they are in a moment where this is one of the few times in life you have a chance to front run Wall Street. How many times in your life do you have that happen?
I'm not going to take a ton of time.
This is that moment. And the people in this space understand that, and they come to this event so they could be immersed in getting the most up-to-date and accurate information about where they're going with this investment that they're involved in.
Whenever you're ready, let us know your name, where you're from, and how you got into XRP.
How did I get into XRP?
Oh, how I got into XRP.
I got into XRP, kind of a long story short.
I had a lot of spare time and started investing in Bitcoin and the usual suspects.
Because I want to buy generational wealth for my family.
I was looking at blockchain and realizing that the transactions were very cheap.
I remember the dot-com years and how companies were so successful.
I believe XRP is going to change blockchain technology and the future of currency as we see it.
I've got some concerns about the value of the dollar.
I feel like God kind of brought me to XRP.
It's the future of cross-border settlement and faster, cheaper, smarter. So I'm very grateful to be here at this XRP Las Vegas 2024 conference.
Guest of honor here, you know him as a warrior for the people, a United States Marine Corps major, a fighter, put your hands together now to welcome John Deaton.
I'm John Deaton. I am the managing partner of the Deaton Law Firm. I'm also founder of Crypto Law US, and I represent 75,000 XRP holders in a lawsuit against the SEC. The lawsuit happened on the 22nd of December. It's Christmas Eve, so it's December 24th. It's 2 days later, and I saw that XRP was going down in price, obviously based on the news. So I said, I'm going to read this complaint just to make sure I'm not missing anything. The SEC sues all kinds of companies. It's really not that big of a deal, but I wanted to read the lawsuit because I owned XRP. So I just pulled it up on my phone and I read the first paragraph. It described XRP itself as a security. It said the digital asset security XRP. And basically I go, shit, that's not good. It was gonna crash, people were gonna get liquidated, people were gonna lose money, and people had their life savings in XRP. Whether it's a good decision or not, it's not the point, but the government shouldn't be the one that dictates whether they make a good investment or not. Government action shouldn't be what causes them to lose money.
This is case number 20CV10832, Securities and Exchange Commission v. Ripple Labs, Inc. et al. The Honorable Annalisa Torres is presiding.
People understand that the case was filed, I think, right before Christmas in 2020. And the allegation was that XRP is a security. The way Ripple transacts and sold XRP were unregistered securities transactions, and that basically everything that Ripple had been doing since its inception was really one long, uninterrupted securities transaction. And more specifically, what the law calls an investment contract.
Ripple, the company, had most of the XRP in existence and offered and sold it in exchange for cash or other consideration, and reasonably led investors to expect profits based upon their efforts, their promised efforts to develop a quote-unquote use for XRP, or to develop what we sometimes refer to as the XRP ecosystem.
The SEC's legal argument was that all of the things this very large company, this billion-dollar company, Ripple Labs, Inc., was doing was getting funds, raising funds, obtaining funds from all sorts of customers, large institutions, by selling XRP, and that they were engaged in this common enterprise together for an expectation of profit. In other words, that because of what Ripple was doing for XRP, XRP was going to increase in value. And that's basically the SEC's theory in a nutshell, on the legal side.
XRP is a separate thing altogether. It is a currency that trades in the marketplace. In the last 8 years, over $1 trillion of the currency has traded. And so what we find is, the SEC, in my opinion, having watched this for many, many years, taking a position now that it is, frankly, I think, with one foot out the door, a little bit incredible to kind of take the position after 8 years. The SEC brought 3 lawsuits. They brought a lawsuit against Chris Larson, the co-founder of Ripple. They brought a lawsuit against me, and they brought a lawsuit against Ripple.
We allege in our complaint, Ripple CEO at the time described himself as being very, very long XRP, and why Ripple and its executives described themselves as the parties most interested in the success of XRP.
They lost the lawsuit against Chris Larson. They lost the lawsuit against me personally.
The SEC has also failed to plead, as it must, that any of Mr. Barlinghouse's alleged sales were within the territorial scope of the U.S. securities law.
The SEC has been trying to do is to put power and politics over what is really just sound policy and providing clear rules of the road such that entrepreneurs and investors can participate in this amazing new market around crypto and blockchain technologies.
Coinbase they had scheduled to halt. They halted XRP trading 15 minutes ago.
The exchanges have all the power to relist XRP and purchase XRP at their discretion.
So people with 300 million XRP bought more as all these people sold off.
As soon as it happened, you saw big exchanges, Coinbase, Kraken, delisting XRP. We're taking it off the platform. We're trying to get in the SEC's good graces. You only had a very few number of exchanges that were willing to keep it on there.
As a compliance-first company, to a degree, we don't care what the rules are. We just want to know what the rules are. In the US, there's still this enormous shadow over the space where there is no clear legislation. The SEC are effectively regulating by enforcement, and it just makes it impossible for legitimate companies to plan. It stifles innovation.
Many of them are quite frustrated that the U.S. does not have clear rules on the books yet, and it's created this unfortunate environment of kind of regulation by enforcement, which is pushing a lot of this industry offshore. We even filed a formal petition with the SEC asking them for clarity about a number of points in the law, which they never responded to. They said, XRP we think might be a security. We said, okay, we want to act in good faith, we'll delist it.
We decided to continue listing XRP after the SEC brought its complaint, after going to 3 separate law firms and basically saying, do you think the SEC is correct on a matter of law? And to our astonishment, all 3 law firms said, no, but we think you should probably delist it anyway.
I was blown away. I was very impressed with what the CEO of Cryptocurrency Exchange Uphold had to say.
You guys were probably like the only exchange, as far as I know, that was still listing XRP, which, kudos to you. And to your point, you were following the letter of the law.
And to be clear, we were taking a risk continuing to support it. We just decided we're going to stand by the community until there's a decision.
On behalf of the SEC, we allege in our complaint that the tokens sold by the defendants in this case, commonly known as XRP, were investment contracts, as that term is used in the Securities Act of 1933, and as that term has been defined by the Supreme Court in the seminal decision SEC versus Howey in 1946.
I knew that this was going to be basically a new area, and I knew that the law was going to have a collision with it because we're still basing law in the United States from the 1934 Securities Act.
The Howey test comes from a 1946 Supreme Court decision. There's a common enterprise prong of the test, which a lot of people would say XRP didn't meet, right?
Jimmy Valley. I'm the founder and managing director of a family office investment firm in Houston, Texas called Valhill Capital.
Welcome to Valhill.
Prior to that, I practiced corporate securities law as a partner for several major law firms for over 20 years. We anticipate that blockchain technology is going to be used to fundamentally change every business, make it more efficient, and that's how I end up stumbling onto to XRP and Ripple. So I had done a couple of months worth of due diligence on XRP. We had very much concluded there's no way XRP can be considered a security. They had already had a settlement with FinCEN, so the Department of Justice, back in 2015.
Department of Justice and FinCEN took a definitive position in 2015, which was reaffirmed actually just last year, that XRP is a currency.
They said XRP is a virtual currency, and this was all a matter of record. We had the statement of facts and all that stuff from that settlement that calls XRP very clearly a virtual currency. If you scroll down to the statement of facts, I'll tell you why this is so significant. So this is the U.S. government basically settling and declaring certain things to be a matter of fact. And you'll see in item 2 here It says Ripple Labs facilitated transfers of a virtual currency and provided virtual currency exchange transaction services. We get to, I say, February of 21. We had at that time the Kick Interactive settlement with the SEC. That token had been issued as a security, but it had been only issued to accredited investors, and so it was effectively a private placement. So they allowed Kick Interactive to file a Form D to perfect the private placement, and then the token kept trading. And they kind of went on like it was no problem. So we very much anticipated very soon that there would be some type of settlement where effectively that's what happened. They settle, pay a fine, off we go. And then in February, something really weird again happens. Acting Chairman Lee basically out of the blue changes this rule, this contingent settlement rule. And it basically made impossible what they had settled on in the Kick Interactive case. And so here again, it's like, this is just too weird. It's kind of like all these people are kind of going above and beyond to act outside of what is normal.
The SEC its mandate is to help protect investors. However, it has turned into a way to keep the small retail people like me out of opportunity.
It's unbelievable what is happening with the SEC.
I truly believe in my heart of hearts that the Ripple XRP versus SEC case is going to be the biggest financial case in history that is going to change our financial system as we know it. If you had any doubts about our government being corrupt as hell, we are going to put all those doubts to rest in this video right here, folks. This is borderline treason.
SEC is part of a broader bureaucracy beast system is what I call it. So what's happened here is the SEC has tried to expand their jurisdiction into encompassing the entire digital asset space. They diverted their attention towards a transparent, legitimate company that was building out real utility in Ripple. And this is what many of us have come to expose in the XRP community, is the fact that we became under attack.
And 100% bad faith, what the SEC has done here. We've completely exposed it all.
So what I'm going to lay out for you today is really astounding. It's all of these smart people from all over the world that came in and literally started a riot, rightfully so, against a government gone wrong, against an SEC gone wrong.
What is the XRP Army? The XRP Army is a revolution. It's a revolution of individuals that are tired of the current system.
The XRP Army knew exactly what was going on because they were targeted, but you had a lot of Ethereum folks cheering on that Ripple was getting attacked, and obviously tangentially or directly XRP. And you just had a lot of these fragmented battles break off in the crypto community.
Are we chasing adoption of cryptocurrency, or are we fighting against corruption in the world financial stage, or are we just trying to increase the money in our bank account? The XRP Army is just a collective of people who share that same mindset, that there's something else going on.
Then I got something that you'll really think's cool. Joseph Grunfest's letter to the SEC right before they made the decision to sue Ripple. He's a former SEC commissioner himself. And you'll see the date is December 17th. This is approximately 5 days before the SEC actually brings the lawsuit against Ripple. And it's addressed to all of the commissioners, all 5 commissioners of the SEC. Each of these key commission staffers has announced their departure from the agency by the end of this calendar year. When he writes this, the end of the calendar year is like 12 days away.
Jay Clayton drops this lawsuit on his last day in office. And then not just him, but a lot of the key players in this quit or gave their resignation after this lawsuit, like mission accomplished.
Simply initiating the action will impose substantial harm on innocent holders of XRP, regardless of the ultimate resolution. 5 days before, he warned them not to do it in writing.
The SEC was unable to actually produce any evidence that made any of us XRP or Ripple investors actually concerned about some of the things that were happening. The SEC was meeting with Ripple for years, and not once did they feel the need to say, oh, by the way, we think you selling XRP could be a security.
We believe that XRP is not a security. Instead, it is a decentralized digital asset with fully developed use cases. And it functions much like Bitcoin and Ether, which are two other digital assets that the SEC has publicly concluded are not securities, and therefore XRP should also be concluded not to be a security.
You know, there has at a minimum been 3 going on 4 years of the use case of XRP being prevented from being realized, and other chains being given favorable, Bitcoin and Ethereum actually being given free passes. So they've actually been able to go and capture market share that XRP certainly would have captured if it had been on a level playing field.
Well, about 2.5 years ago, a little over 2.5 years ago, the SEC came out proactively and said they did not view Bitcoin as a security. They viewed it as a commodity or currency. Shortly thereafter, they came out and said Ether, the second most valuable cryptocurrency, is also not a security.
So the Hinman speech, we call it the free pass speech. If it's technically a free pass, that's kind of up for debate. But it basically gave Bitcoin and Ethereum what we call a free pass, and he kind of ruled it not a security. And there's lots of, the legal team of the SEC distanced themselves from that narrative, which showed that there's possible corruption when it comes to Bill Hinman.
Now, what's so crazy about this is this happened in 2018, and we learned through the SEC v. Ripple litigation that a lot was going on behind the scenes with that speech. There was a bitter legal fight to get a lot of documents exposed.
People were alleging was essentially that, you know, Hinman and others inside the SEC, you know, had some ulterior motive for doing that speech, giving that free pass.
A few days ago, after 2 years, 7 court orders, and over $100 million in legal bills, the Hinman speech documents, including internal SEC emails and comments leading up to this now infamous 2018 speech, they've finally been unsealed. They knowingly created confusion about the rules, and they used that confusion to regulate through enforcement. That's bad faith, plain and simple.
So I think you'll dig this as something that we made in the office on ETHgate. Gave a speech and they cashed it.
And I'm going to give basically a high-level presentation of what Ethereum is as a technology, and then kind of organizationally how it is, including its IPO.
Will there be a limit on the amount that's going to be a network? Either be like the BTC and Bitcoin, or like the XRP and Ripple.
Imagine that.
Alibaba looks like we'll go public sometime, which could happen pretty much within a month.
Welcome back. Alibaba is filing for its IPO.
Could be the biggest IPO ever. We'll see what kind of market cap it generates.
And everybody recognizes that gentleman right there, Bill Hinman.
Welcome to Regulatory Capture 101, also known as ETHgate. In this incredible story of where a few select individuals go to our government actors and they capture them and they get them to give them what we call a regulatory advantage. An advantage that's blessed by the regulators, which really gives a monopolistic advantage to one asset over another. And that advantage was given to Ethereum. Here you see on this board the cast of characters. We know we got Jay Clayton, chairman of the SEC at the time. Jay Clayton from the law firm Sullivan and Cromwell.
You do know the rule that if they are represented by Sullivan and Cromwell in front of the agency, then you're going to be banned from being able to vote against them.
If they are represented by Sullivan and Cromwell in front of the agency, I would not be able to participate.
That was my point.
Bill Hinman becomes Director of Corporation and Finance. Bill Hinman is from Simpson Thatcher.
If you have a token that's just used in the network for a good or service, and that's why people are buying it, and that service is available and up and running, not under development, then you may not have a security.
The thing to know about Simpson Thatcher, they are a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. Their entire goal is to derive all enterprise action and transactions to Ethereum. Not Bitcoin, not XRP, or any other thing. That's important as we move forward. Well, this fella right here is named Joe Lubin. Joe Lubin is a co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Consensus. Consensus is a company dedicated to Ethereum and dedicated to this alliance.
This guy likes to talk.
Certain projects obviously sold securities.
And he's arrogant.
Ripple, overvalued or undervalued? Oh, I don't want to say anything mean about them. You don't have to. Massively overvalued.
Joe Lubin is a co-founder of Ethereum with Vitalik Buterin.
Thanks to the power of modern communication, we have the ability to create technologies that are decentralized. Here is where Ethereum comes in. So Ethereum borrows from Ripple this concept that we should separate the state from the transaction list. Okay, let's do a sing-along. Anochi heisen kagayaku no wa doko ka ni kimi o kakushite iru kara.
When Jay Clayton was appointed SEC chairman, Joe Lubin hired Jay Clayton's partners at Sullivan and Cromwell. He hired several attorneys to come work at his company, Consensus, and he made one of Jay Clayton's partners, Patrick Baraducci, his deputy general counsel of Consensus. Jay Clayton, in December of 2017, he tells his friend Bill Hinman to contact Joe Lubin. So this guy tells his friend Bill Hinman to give his partner's client a call. And that begins the beginning of what is known as ETHgate.
Hello, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about ETHgate.
Here are the three things that you need to know about ETHgate and why every single American should care about this story.
We need to know all these shenanigans that took place around the Ethereum free pass. We need to know what happened. We need to know about the memos that got written, all their deliberative stuff that they did to drive off down this path.
JP Morgan's got buyer remorse from Ethereum? Oh, say it isn't so.
We frankly saw the news coverage and the social media activity from folks in the XRP army. So they're making all kinds of claims, and I was frankly just curious, right? Like, this is quite a story. People are, these are interesting allegations. I wonder if there's anything to it. So we we initiated some FOIA requests to try to find out. I'm Jason Foster, and I'm the founder of Empower Oversight. We're trying to ensure that there's greater transparency and accountability in the way that government operates. The Freedom of Information Act is a law that's intended to increase government transparency, and it essentially allows anybody to file a request for documents from any federal agency. What tends to happen is that unless you sue in court, you're at the bottom of the pile. And so there's this system whereby groups like ours, they just request information from government, they request documents. It can be emails, it can be calendar entries. We sent in one FOIA request, and then they immediately broke it up into a dozen or so subparts. We had to deal with, a whole host of bureaucrats in dealing with trying to clarify and work on each request. They were like Lucy with the football. They said, well, okay. They then refused to actually do the searches on those names when we gave them to them. And all of this just eats up months and months and months of time, which, is arguably, that's kind of the point, right? We would post those documents on our website when we got them. Then the XRP community, the XRP army would then, interact with that and then, do a deep dive and pull every document apart and analyze the meaning of each one, etc.
Yeah, it was like 99 pages or something, and all of it was blacked out. I'm talking about like all of every page is blacked out, markers through. Just, there's no other way to say it than just lies. That's all it is, lies. We're piecing together all these timelines with videos and public videos that we're able to find. From that is where the guys were able to formulate their Freedom of Information Act request, because they're like, oh, okay, so something's going on. So then you get this. Well, as it leaks out, when they're not lying and they're not trying to act like they can't find anything, it leaked out that they were meeting with Vitalik. It was, as I recall, Bill Hinman was literally on the phone with Joseph Lubin. He's on the phone doing phone calls with Vitalik Buterin.
The first meeting takes place on December 13th, 2017.
Bill Hinman, newly at the SEC as the Director of Corporation Finance, has a meeting with Consensus and Joe Lubin. The next day, Matt Corva, who's a senior lawyer at Consensus, ends up publicly revealing that they've been having meetings with the SEC and that things are going very well.
So what we're really focused on there is building an alliance with other blockchain companies, law firms. There's a couple of interesting law schools that are interested. We hope Berkeley's going to get involved as well, and regulators. We've had some talks with some folks at the SEC about this. We've had some talks with folks in other government agencies.
On January 25th of 2018, Jay Clayton goes to this guy, Chris Dixon, who is the general partner of A16Z, that's Andreessen Horowitz's crypto fund, the largest crypto fund in the world. And Jay Clayton says to Chris Dixon, put together a small working group and tell us what you want in writing, and you send that memo to Bill Hinman. Chris Dixon says, sure, I'll put together a small working group. Now, Bitcoin's number one, Ethereum at the time's number two. The third cryptocurrency is XRP, which is associated with Ripple and these two guys. So you would think that this guy would invite this guy to the party. Doesn't happen. Brad Garlinghouse never gets a call. It's never part of that small working group. Why? Because this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy are working for this, the Ethereum Alliance.
And what the chairman of the SEC said was, look, form a small working group and come up with some suggestions.
pretty much saying, look, we're tired of talking to people about the how we test. Put some real practical suggestions together.
And so what happens is Chris Dixon calls on Lowell Ness, his #1 crypto attorney, and says, hey, write that memo to Jay Clayton what we want. And what he does is he writes a memo asking for Ethereum to be given a free pass.
And this is the part that now not a lot of people know. And he invited Chris Dixon to round up the sort of the industry players who were really kind of trying to do it the right way, and asked for a couple of things. One, essentially, lay out in a very detailed, written, footnoted memo what existing law says about utility tokens. And two, give us a proposal for where to go from here. I got the chance to be the one to write all that stuff.
Lowell Ness worked for a firm called Perkins Coie. They too were a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, just like Bill Hinman, Simpson, Thatcher. And they put together this memo where they were asking for a safe harbor for one token. They only mention one token, and it's Ethereum. So you have the members of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, whose goal and mission is to only promote Ethereum, and they satisfied that goal in the memo because the only crypto token they asked for a safe harbor was in fact Ethereum. That was March 26, 2018. 2 days later, Bill Hinman meets with these Ethereum investors.
We submitted that safe harbor to them in March. We met with them. We met with congressional members. We met with Department of Treasury, the CFTC.
And he then starts writing his infamous speech. Bill Hinman is sending emails to multiple people at the SEC. Pay attention to the fact that the one agency at the SEC that was not copied on the speech was the ethics office at the SEC. In fact, no other commissioner except for the chairman, Jay Clayton, ever got to see a copy of the speech.
I worked for Congress for 8 years, spent most of that doing congressional investigations, and spent 5 years at independent agencies in the executive branch. So I led 2 of those, and I was a general counsel for an agency for several years doing ethics. For a number of years, Congress has had various ethics statutes, so there are laws in place to prevent conflicts of interest, to prevent other things like that. And those are laws that can be prosecuted. They're criminal laws. On top of that, there are also a number of regulations that have been layered there to help avoid even the appearance of a conflict or other things like that. When it comes to cryptocurrency, you've got people trying to work off this legislation that clearly never contemplated what we're talking about today. And the government shouldn't be picking winners and losers, but when there are not set regulations, when there's not clear guidance, then it ends up being kind of an ad hoc, again, that regulation by enforcement. And that's bad for the public, it's bad for predictability. But Hinman made it so interesting because of his personal financial interests. And so that to me made this a perfect area for Empower Oversight to get involved in, because we could help bring transparency. He's the director of the Division of Corporate Finance. He had no responsibility for anything related to cryptocurrency, and in fact he'd been told by agency ethics officials he shouldn't work on anything that related to the work of his former firm. At the end of the day, the ethics office only gives guidance. It's up to the individual. He signed his ethics agreement in early 2017 when he started at the SEC. He commits he's going to abide by that agreement, and then after that, the ethics office isn't looking over his shoulder. It certainly raises questions about his personal judgment and what his motivations were, because as he took those meetings, as he led up to that speech, it seems that the only person at the SEC who knew what was going on and what the impact would be was Bill Hinman himself.
On June 8th, 2018, Bill Hinman meets this guy, Vitalik Buterin, and they talk about this speech that Bill Hinman's going to give 6 days later.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Yahoo Finance All Market Summit Crypto. We're delighted to be here. Say that we have a regulator here from the Securities and Exchange Commission today who's actually got some developments that he's going to be sharing with us. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I think we're ready to kick things off and bring up our first guest of the day. We do have Bill. Okay, good. So our first guest this morning is Bill Hinman from the Securities and Exchange Commission, who has an announcement that he'd like to make. There he is, Bill. Good to see you. Welcome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Take it away, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Moreover, putting aside the fundraising that accompanied the creation of Ether, based on my understanding of the present state of Ether, the Ethereum network, its decentralized structure, we believe current offers and sales of Ether are not securities transactions.
He comes out with his speech, a very public speech, saying that for all these reasons of decentralization and other reasons that Ethereum specifically is not a security, and that we are not going to consider it to be a security. I say that because the we was obviously referring to the SEC, and there was a huge SEC logo behind him as he was giving the speech. But eventually, in the SEC v. Ripple litigation, he said, no, that was just my personal opinion. I was just speaking as, a member of the public.
Several senior ranking officials at the SEC, including the chairman and another commissioner at the SEC, went and roadshowed the Hinman Free Pass speech.
When we look at Bitcoin, or if we look at Ether and the highly decentralized nature of the networks, we don't see a third-party promoter where applying the disclosure regime.
You can hear the traders on the floor actually reacting to his commentary about that. Kind of a, come on, what are you talking about? Here Jay Clayton is basically giving a speech to a group of investors, giving a speech into the market.
Bill Hinman recently outlined the approach we take to evaluate whether a digital asset is a security. And I encourage you to take a look at Bill's speech, which is available on our website.
He refers everyone in the market to go look at Bill Hinman's speech that's available on the SEC website. So this is another SEC commissioner at the time. He basically commends the SEC for doing a great job and refers to Bill Hinman's speech.
I'll be honest, I think my colleagues have done a great job about this. The director of our division of corporation finance is a man named Bill Hinman, who did he gave a speech where he laid out, here's how we think about this, and gave a set of principles that the market can follow.
It must have been very shocking to be the number 3 cryptocurrency watching that speech and then to be sued a year and a half later by the SEC, claiming that somehow their decentralization is magically different.
And I remember thinking, wow, they've never done this before. This is crazy. This is huge news. And so I questioned myself immediately. I said, I wonder if Bill Hinman has any connection to Ethereum or Bitcoin. Because if he did, he should never give that speech. And that would never happen. That's what we all thought. Well, it turns out that Bill Hinman, this guy, while he was at the SEC being paid by you and me, taxpayers, he was also being paid as a profit-sharing partner from his law firm, Simpson Thatcher. that mission of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance was fulfilled.
In order to understand the gravity of this story and its implications to the new global financial system, one must unpack the interconnectedness of multinational corporations and the very powerful executives that run them. So how do we do that? Follow money.
The Ripple lawsuit was filed in the end of 2020. And right after that, when Jay Clayton leaves his tenure and when Bill Henman leaves his tenure at the SEC, they get very nice jobs at crypto firms where a lot of the money in those firms is in the Ethereum project.
Jay Clayton leaves the Securities and Exchange Commission, goes back to Sullivan & Cromwell to being a senior partner. In October, a hedge fund named One River makes a $1 billion bet on Bitcoin and Ethereum. Jay Clayton, within a couple of months, goes to One River, who benefited from this decision to sue Ripple. Bill Henman leaves around the same time the Securities and Exchange Commission, goes back to his law firm as a partner at Simpson Thacher, and he also becomes a partner of A16Z, leading up regulatory affairs for the venture capital firm.
He was paid $15 million from his law firm, a member of the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, which is only meant to promote Ethereum, and he gave a speech saying that Ethereum was not a security. That is what you call an absolute conflict of interest. Simpson Thacher actually brought another IPO to the market, a company called Knan out of China, which guess what kind of equipment they made? They made Ethereum mining equipment. And so by Ethereum getting a free pass, that company made millions and millions in its IPO. Guess who was getting paid some of that millions of dollars? The guy at the SEC called Bill Henman. It was his firm.
It is interesting when someone looks at that timeline of events, why we get an Ethereum specific speech adopted by Jay Clayton publicly. Then we have a very large competitor to Ethereum, XRP, targeted in a lawsuit a year or two later. And then we have these two individuals working at crypto firms that made very big bets on Ethereum.
You got to understand where Jay Clayton and Bill Henman come from. They're some of the best known securities lawyers in the country, is what I found out later. Just so happens, Jay Clayton and Bill Henman were the two key attorneys in taking Alibaba public.
Jay and Bill worked close together over here with this partner, Leming Chen, also from Simpson Thacher, for the Alibaba IPO.
They were like the attorneys of the year, or whatever they call it.
Alibaba pulled together some capital from New Horizon and Nepot Capital, both of which are princeling private equity firms. The founder of New Horizon is Win Young Sung, also known as Winston Win. He is the son of the Premier of China at this time in 2012. He Jintao is the founder of Nepot Capital. He is the son of one of the top 24 Chinese Communist Party politicians in the country. That's why these are referred to as princeling private equity firms. Ant Financial, Alipay is rebranded as Ant Financial, and they do a fundraise at a $60 billion valuation. They've just valued these two businesses, Alibaba and Ant Financial, in the course of a month at about $290 billion. In August of 2014, Alibaba and Alipay enter into a joint venture to basically establish what would become the new financial arm of Alibaba. Laming Chen, who ran the IPO for Simpson Thacher with Bill Hinman, becomes the general counsel of Ant Financial in February of 2016. In January of 2017, Ant Financial and MoneyGram announce a massive merger. Simpson and Thacher is counsel for Ant Financial in this mega deal. This is important because this is the American payment system and the Chinese payment system being brought together.
Ant Financial had made an offer to purchase MoneyGram when Trump was president. Trump, with a stroke of the pen, I think, said, nope, we're not going to let that happen. You can't buy MoneyGram.
They tried to buy MoneyGram, and the United States said no because there was too much of a connection with the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and that was vetoed by the United States National Security Agency.
We get to June, and Ripple announces a major transaction with MoneyGram where they acquired 9%. And in their SEC filings, they inform the SEC that MoneyGram will be using XRP to move cross-border payments super fast.
So everything was going according to plan. XRP was the third largest cryptocurrency in the world behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. In fact, XRP and Ethereum would battle each other for the #2 spot all throughout 2018 and even into 2019.
The MoneyGram Ripple transaction that we had discussed before has to be called off because the SEC is suing Ripple.
So MoneyGram couldn't be affiliated with XRP because it's in the middle of an SEC lawsuit. Almost like that was part of the plan. Also, just as a side note, it's important. These guys' law firms, Simpson Thacher and Sullivan Cromwell, are both heavy duty in with JP Morgan. And if you go and you look, and there's a clip of JP Morgan bragging about their blockchain. And there's a whole video. Ant Financial is right on the diagram. I have the video.
One of the lead underwriters in the Alibaba IPO is JP Morgan. Who also had substantial connections to these princeling private equity firms. JP Morgan was later found guilty by the SEC for violating the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. They were giving jobs and internships to some relatives of Chinese government officials.
Many people don't know, but we have the videos. We have, in their own words, JP Morgan was working with the Ethereum founders before the Ethereum mainnet launch.
Our company Consensus has been very prominent since the start of the Ethereum ecosystem. I can attest that JP Morgan was there right from the start before public mainnet was even launched.
In February of 2017, JP Morgan and other major companies that included Microsoft and Intel formed the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance for the sole purpose of perpetuating the use and adoption of Ethereum and that network by other major enterprises. In September of 2017, Jamie Dimon, who's the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan, famously declares on stage that if he ever catches a trader trading in Bitcoin, he'll fire him in seconds. when all of this support of blockchain technology was going on in the background.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for, how it trades, why it trades, who trades it. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day.
In December of 2017, JP Morgan goes to Ripple's offices.
The idea that JP Morgan isn't actively working in the blockchain and Bitcoin space is not true. Frankly, I don't mind sharing. There are 15 senior JP Morgan people at Ripple's offices this afternoon. Now, unless JP Morgan is going to fire them.
Does JP Diamond know that?
Apparently not.
In January of 2018, Ripple ends up putting the XRP, 55 billion XRP, into a cryptographic escrow that would be released at a rate of 1 billion a month for every month for the next 55 months.
What Ripple did was Ripple created a series of escrows that are impossible to complete. It's like I'm promising to do something that's literally impossible to do. And so the only thing that can happen to these escrows is they time out and the money goes back to Ripple. And so Ripple created a series of escrows that had a set of timeouts set spaced a month apart. And what that did is that sort of guaranteed that Ripple could not put more XRP in circulation more quickly than some predictable schedule. And what Ripple does each month is when an escrow unlocks and reaches its time, Ripple decides how much of that we're going to use and how much we'll put back into escrow and adds another month onto that escrow.
So now we're in early 2020. It's the onset of COVID. In May, JP Morgan announces a fiat liquidity agreement with the two dominant US-based crypto exchanges, Coinbase and Gemini. In August, Consensus, which is now the de facto third-party promoter of the Ethereum network, acquires Quorum, which has the JPM coin project, from JP Morgan.
We developed Quorum, a private blockchain protocol that empowers businesses to build high-performance applications at scale.
And Consensus is also supporting JPM coin, which is a stable coin solution. So that's a separate network that JP Morgan has built on Quorum. The Quorum team is heavily engaged with us. I can't say much more of a detailed nature about that right now, but we are working intimately with those people.
On August 14th, 2020, Joe Lubin transferred critical intellectual property infrastructure from Consensus in Switzerland to a new Consensus entity that was substantially owned by JP Morgan, about 40%, squeezing out the original Consensus employees and shareholders. When you follow the money, it paints a very clear picture of China's financial elite working with the US financial elite and the regulators of the US financial system to front run the new global digital financial system.
Who wins? That's the question here. Who wins? Because I think that China wins. And this is where that's where it gets really interesting. Because if you take a look and you step back, even to this day, China just keeps winning. My understanding is that Ethereum, when they were literally, the guys were in financial trouble to get the Ethereum founders back maybe 2015 or 16-ish. And who bails them out? Vitalik Buterin heads to China.
So what is the future for Ethereum? Let's ask the co-creator, Stephen Narioff, who joins us now on the phone. Stephen, welcome to Fast Money. Pleasure to have you with us.
Hi, Amanda. Great to be here. Thank you.
So I'm Stephen Narioff. In addition to inventing the structure that became the ICO, I've probably done more ICOs than anybody. Alec, it's been about 5 years since you kind of all came together. And you did some pretty great things that I think everybody knows about. And our relationship is amazing. We're roommates, could you say? And 2013, 2013, I got really, very interested in crypto, and I hired this guy that was running the New York City Bitcoin meetup. His name's Jonathan Mohan. Jonathan came in and dropped the Ethereum white paper days after Vitalik had written it. Vitalik was going to introduce this at a conference, a Bitcoin conference in Miami.
So back when Bitcoin was originally created in 2009, Satoshi was really testing two things at once. Let's not have one currency. Let's have thousands of currencies.
I sent Jonathan down, and he met with, the team, and I can show like a picture of that. And so that, these were some of the original founders. You can see Charles Hoskinson over here, Gavin Wood, Vitalik, Anthony Delorio. The problem that they had was, what is Ether? Is it a security or is it not? And everybody was saying it was. If you could get over this first hurdle and say it's not a security, then how could you sell it to the general public? The guy that I had sent down there, I told a number of the co-founders, so my boss can figure this out, meaning me. Charles Hoskinson calls me and says, your guy here says you can figure out, how we can sell Ether legally. It was a challenge I was willing to take on. Charles and I started working very closely together. Charles actually had quite a bit of experience in crypto. He had launched a project called BitShares about a year or so earlier. Their primary investor in the project was a venture capital firm known as Fenbushi Capital. It's a subsidiary, coincidentally, of Wang Shang, the Chinese large conglomerate.
I had a venture called BitShares, and the lead investor of that was Li Shai-Lao. And Li, he brought another person in named Bo Shen, and I introduced both Li and Bo to Vitalik.
Eventually, I was able to come up with a whole series of steps that I felt were tight enough and protective enough, and felt, most importantly, within the United States securities laws, because that was our main concern. And the process that I had come up with there was became known as the ICO, or initial coin offering. I had found a law firm called Pryor Cashman to help represent us. We ran the idea by them, to see what their thoughts were on it. And I sent an email, actually, right after that meeting to Joe Lubin, to Charles Hoskinson, and Anthony Delorio. Wow, this was cool. Wish you guys could have been a fly on the wall. We got the professor on the line. The professor is Joe Grunfuss, because at the time he was also a professor at Stanford Law School. The thing that was extremely peculiar about the Ethereum ICO was the, I would say, linear nature of how the sales were happening. And what I mean by that was, in a typical ICO, you would see a surge of buying initially, and then maybe a drop off, and then maybe another surge, and it would be a very choppy chart. Ethereum's was the most inorganic, unnatural chart I've ever seen. It essentially was consistent buying the entire 41 days during the ICO. Crowd sale, much of which I spent with Joe Lubin, in the office that I'd rented for Ethereum in New York. Joe said, I wonder if we're gonna get lucky here and see, a nice hit come in a very short period of time thereafter. A significant number of transactions kind of all hit at once. The only way I could see something like that happening is if it was something that wasn't being done by human, but was rather programmed. to be buying consistently throughout, and that there was some type of concerted effort to concentrate the ownership of the Ether amongst a few parties.
In July of 2014, they actually launched the Ethereum crowd sale, and at some point shortly thereafter, Hashkey Group ends up making an investment in Ethereum as part of the crowd sale. As we advance into 2015, Ethereum had raised millions of dollars in connection with its crowd sale to fund the development of the Ethereum network, but they were in trouble. They were running out of money. As we understand, they had failed to hedge the Bitcoin that was received as part of the crowd sale, and they were basically just running on fumes.
I got a fairly panicked call from Vitalik Buterin.
The fact that the position wasn't hedged, in my opinion, is inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. You know, Joe ran a goddamn hedge fund. There's a word in the fund called hedge.
Yeah.
You had a guy who was handling this that ran a hedge fund for 8 years and didn't hedge your position. So ultimately speaking, yeah, you're to blame for all of this.
Right. I think that probably, yeah. If I had to describe my faults, it would be that I was basically trying to abdicate responsibility the whole time, and I think because I didn't really want it, and there's no one else. First of all, there was no one else who was clearly taking it from me.
Vitalik was going back and forth between Toronto, which is where he lived, and New York, and he was staying with me throughout, that year. When he was living with me, he was learning Mandarin. It's kind of curious, why is he learning Mandarin? Vitalik, kind of in the midst of a crisis at Ethereum, left Ethereum and worked as a partner at this Fanbushi Capital. He also took the position as, I believe it was chief scientist for Wensheng Blockchain Labs. He was really putting all of his effort into these Chinese, and he's called the V God in China.
以太坊这个项目的存在目标就是不是
took all this money and you were not making your actual own blockchain Ethereum scale.
So this is an article that was published to the Hashkey Group's website. The Hashkey Group is a spinoff of Wang Zhang. This article has been completely scrubbed from Hashkey's website, and all references to it to the internet have also disappeared. This is the chairman of Hashkey speaking. If we could actively fund the development of Ethereum at this critical moment, we would not only become a major participant in this revolutionary project, but we could also leverage this opportunity to guide and implement Wang Zhang's blockchain strategic planning. So he proposes to Vitalik that they would donate US $500,000 to the Ethereum Foundation under the name Wang Zhang Blockchain Labs, which the Ethereum Foundation accepted, and they further committed, in order to dispel any developer doubts, that they would continue to fund the foundation over the next year so that the developers could focus on their work to help the Ethereum mainnet go live as scheduled. In July of 2015, the Ethereum network actually launches.
This is a conversation with Charles Hoskinson, and this is towards the, this is right after the crowd sale had been completed. Charles said the Chinese have been courting Vitalik hard, and Joe has a plan to bring Vitalik to New York with a $4 million Ethereum 2 group. So I think what he's saying here is that the Chinese, doesn't specify who those Chinese are actually courting Vitalik hard. This is after the crowd sale, after they've already raised their money. And that Joe has some kind of plan to consolidate something in New York to create some second Ethereum group. He said, it seems to me that Joe wants to take over Ethereum. Let me repeat that again. It seems Charles is saying, it seems to me that Joe wants to take over Ethereum. It's an Emperor of Japan strategy, i.e., Charles says, gradually figurehead Vitalik and take over the funds, basically take over Ethereum. Now, Emperor of Japan strategy, what that really effectively means is a symbolic figurehead. And so what he's saying here is their plan was to install Vitalik as not the leader of Ethereum that he has been portrayed to be all these years, but simply as a symbolic figurehead to be touted around, but that clearly these, what's being said here, there are other people in the background that would be actually pulling the strings. A few days later, Charles texts me back and says, someone must have spoken to Vitalik, he's gone dark. And he said he hasn't replied to any of my queries. And I replied, I said, if he's ignoring you, it must be Joe Lubin, behind that. Charles had some choice words to say about I'm completely done with these bleepers. I want these back bleeper to burn.
Joseph Grunfest. He says here, national security considerations are also at stake. Correspondence from the United States Senate to the Director of National Intelligence and to the National Security Advisor regarding national security's concerns arising from Chinese control over Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Just prior to the ICO, the lawyers for Ethereum required the organization to agree that they would become what's called decentralized. If you're not decentralized, then you could be considered a security. The way that the lawyers went about this is that they required that Ethereum would issue new tokens, new Ether, to be exact, 30% of what they had sold in the ICO within a given number of years. The situation we have here is by the term of Ethereum's own internal documentations that were signed by Vitalik Buterin himself, Ethereum was not decentralized. Vitalik has a meeting at the Securities and Exchange Commission called by Bill Hinman. And the thrust of that meeting was to discuss whether or not Ethereum was decentralized. What occurred shortly after this meeting, I think in the opinion of a lot of people, changed the entire trajectory of the crypto industry. Bill Hinman made what has now become famously known as the free pass speech. Vitalik was in a meeting under oath talking about whether or not it was decentralized. Jeffrey Alberts, the attorney who wrote the document, was in that meeting as well. Prior to that meeting, there was another meeting under oath also discussing Ethereum's structure with Joseph Lubin. After all of these meetings, and all three of these individuals knew about the requirement to issue the additional Ether in order for Ethereum to be decentralized, because I'm on that email, and those are the only other people that are also on that email. Yet Bill Hinman makes a speech and says it was decentralized and gave it a golden halo above every other token. And I suppose the only question really to ask is, did Bill Hinman actually know that Ethereum was not decentralized when he made that speech?
The SEC lose the case.
Good morning, Warriors. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite crypto news channel, Good Morning Crypto.
Today on Good Morning Crypto, we will be discussing how the time is now for XRP investors, as former SEC Director William Hinman's emails have been released, exposing the games being played by the United States regulator.
We got 835 live listeners joining us. Show us some love. Smash that like button. We love you guys. We'll see you in 23 hours. And like we always say, Warriors, rise. Get your shit together, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
When you listen to the average XRP investor right now, they're extremely frustrated. They've been dragged through the mud. The people who are supposed to protect us are attacking us right now. They decided to attack Ripple because it was one of the most powerful projects in the crypto sector, and it was already having an impact in the United States.
We know that there are entities in place that have been there for a long time and in power, and so whenever you threaten that power, I think you're going to see, some things happening there. But the community, the XRP community held strong, I think, through most of it.
Yep.
But always questioned why XRP, why not ETH, or why not, where was the SEC when FTX went down, right? How did they not see that one coming?
Why would the SEC willfully pass over Ethereum to attack the third largest crypto project when we know for a fact there's multiple illegal things that they've done on paper? There's no conspiracies here. The ICO was illegal. The way they raised funding was illegal. The fact that they offered the token in the United States was illegal. We feel like we've been attacked by the people who were supposed to protect us for no reason other than corruption. And that doesn't go away when this lawsuit's resolved because the corruption still resides. We talk about Gary Gensler every single day. He's not the man responsible for bringing the XRP lawsuit forth. He's the man responsible for dragging it to the finish line.
So remember, Jay Clayton has left. Biden has become president in January, so he gets to now appoint a new SEC chairman. I think we knew it was going to be Gensler.
On day one, I will fire Gary Gensler and appoint a new SEC chairman.
We don't need more digital currency. We already have digital currency. It's called the US dollar. Hi, this is Gary Gensler.
The SEC Commissioner, Gary Gensler, yesterday spoke to members of Congress and called on them to rein in the Wild West of cryptocurrency world.
We comply and then tell us they'll be suing us if we proceed to launch with zero explanation as to why.
Chair Gensler, to you, your open hostility towards digital assets is hurting consumers and setting the U.S. behind the rest of the world.
I mean, the automobile wouldn't have survived if you didn't have traffic lights, if you didn't have stop signs, and even cops on the road to make sure there weren't accidents. And so that's part of our role as being cops on the beat.
Coinbase lawsuit was filed by the SEC, and the one against Kraken, again, this was in 2023, there were a lot more cryptocurrencies that were deemed securities by the SEC or alleged to be securities by the SEC in those complaints. all of the top 10 cryptos. And at that point, the industry knew that it was under attack and that nothing it was going to do or say was going to get the SEC off its back. And they came together finally, and you see that none of those assets were delisted by the exchanges in those complaints against them. And that now we've got the tide turning where the companies realize that we're not going to be able to play nice with the SEC, so now we got to play in their game and go on the offense filing these suits.
On January 1st, 9 days after the SEC filed the lawsuit against XRP and Ripple, I filed a suit called a writ of mandamus against the SEC. So that entire week, I worked on basically the suit against the SEC. And we filed it on January 1st at 1:30 in the morning. And so Christie said, listen, the government's going to come after you. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, the United States government is probably the biggest bully in the world, if we're going to be honest. And I said, listen, I'm willing to fill that role. I don't care. And so we hit enter. I didn't realize what was going to happen. I ended up posting it on Twitter, the lawsuit. What I did is I said, well, listen, if you want to join me, then here's a Google form. And I didn't think much of it. I thought maybe a few hundred people would sign up, if that. And the next thing you know, it was 5,000, 12,000, 20,000, and eventually grew to over 75,000 people from 143 countries around the world all joined.
He knew there was something wrong, and he was the only one willing to stand up and go really put his money where his mouth is and do it. And boy, are we grateful for him, because we have won with him. Do we say that we're special investigators for John Deaton for this?
Yeah, because
yeah, we do.
We approached John and said, look, we've been at this for a long time. So we kind of started talking a little bit.
Then he would ask us, hey, can you help find information here? Because I think this is a great place to dig. And we started getting out the shovels and really going down it. Now there's a huge video library. There's all kinds of content that absolutely proves everything that we understand. We have Stephen Nareyoff as well.
On September 19, 2019, over a dozen FBI agents broke into my house and arrested me. What happened after that was a nearly 4-year false prosecution, which was led by the SEC, which is a civil agency that does not have jurisdiction in criminal matters. So why did they come after me? I had an intimate knowledge of the Ethereum Foundation, its history, and a treasure trove of documents. I promised myself that when I got out of that, I would tell the world the truth as to what really happened. And that's what I'm doing right now.
It's a game of attrition right now. They're trying to get us to burp it up by keeping the prices low. And the lawsuit has given them the perfect cover story to suppress the price, and no one even questioned, it was delisted and they're not really using it, and there's all this stuff. But we know what we hold, right?
And I was really worried we were going to have a judge who saw the SEC as a regulator and simply say, you know what, the regulator is right here. But we got really lucky with our judge.
So John Deaton, representing XRP holders, how do you think it went today?
I think the judge was very lenient, at the same time a little harsh on the SEC. I'd have been a lot harsher. She's a better judge than I could ever be. And basically, I think we're going to see a decision in favor of Ripple.
July 13th, 2023. An absolutely historical moment.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Guess what? SEC versus Ripple ruling is in. Judge Torres didn't disappoint. She must have heard me singing.
What a historic day today. As Ripple Labs has beaten down The United States Securities and Exchange Commission.
Secondary sales were not investment contract securities offerings, so XRP, the token in and of itself, is not a security.
Ripple just won. XRP is not a security.
This has been 3 years in the making here. Ripple didn't violate securities by selling XRP on public exchanges.
There's no question that this was a victory, like a big victory. Yes. Everything the SEC cares about, they lost.
Yes.
Honestly, I watched your videos as soon as they came out. I'm like, all right, let me understand what's going on. You guys are the best. One thing I think we all learned is it does take a village to fight a bully, and this village beat the bully.
We got validated because there's evidence here, right? There's real evidence here, and it validates the story.
The 75,000 XRP holders who joined me should be very proud because we helped establish the cryptocurrency as a legitimate asset class, and we did it against the greatest bully of all.
We found XRP to not be a security, and that ain't never gonna change.
This is a recent decision, just a handful of days ago. We were pleased from that decision, recognizing the importance of protecting investors on the institutional investors. And while disappointed on what they said about retail investors, we're still looking at it and assessing that opinion.
Another legal case signals the SEC is going to appeal the Ripple ruling that XRP is not a security.
The SEC's motion to appeal the loss in the Ripple case has been denied.
The SEC is asking for $2 billion. So Ripple has urged the court to impose a civil penalty of less than $10 million.
The day has finally come in this XRP lawsuit, SEC versus Ripple. Judge Torres issuing the final judgment on remedies. You guys let me know in the comments down below, is an appeal coming? The XRP victory pump is already underway, above 60 cents and on the move.
Today, XRP tumbles after the SEC says that it will appeal that landmark Ripple ruling.
As the SEC is on a carpet bombing plan when it comes to crypto companies, my goodness.
Things are getting insane with the SEC as Commissioner Mark Ueda goes on TV and says the SEC's handling of crypto has been disastrous.
Policies and our approach the last several years have been just really a disaster for the whole industry. We have been setting this policy through enforcement. We've done nothing to provide guidance on it.
Crypto exchange, Crypto.com, filing a lawsuit against the Securities and Exchange Commission yesterday in a bid to fight back against SEC Chairman Gary Gensler's ongoing crypto crackdown.
Under Chair Gensler, the SEC has become a rogue agency.
May 2022 is when we sent our referral to the SEC and asked them to investigate both the allegations that the XRP community was putting forth with regard to Henman, in light of the emails that we received, but also to look at the SEC Ethics Office. When the report comes out, well, we'll read the report. But they had told us in those negotiations that it was in the final stages. That was February, it's now September, and we still haven't seen it.
We are really early still in when it comes to the number of projects, the number of use cases that cryptocurrency is going to bring to the table.
The quicker that we can get involved with blockchain, the more that we're going to be able to benefit from it.
We're really excited about these new developments within the industry and how it's directly going to enhance the XRPL ecosystem as a whole.
We're getting to that interoperable future where I hope the XRP ledger is like a great participant in there, and it's a place where people find lots of things that they want.
XRP offers a lot of efficiencies and a lot of advantages over these assets being used today.
By using intelligent tokenomics and smart contracts, we're able to manage it in such a way where we may at some point truly eliminate poverty.
The
entire securities markets, stocks and bonds, private equity are going to be tokenized, represented on the blockchain to provide a new way for that value to be exchanged. And even real-world assets like artwork.
The blockchain is a tool to certificate something, in our case, digital and physical fine art.
You're going to see pretty much an amalgamation of everything tokenized on blockchain.
You're going to see something that we have never seen in our lifetime.
The potential that some of these assets have could be mind-boggling.
I actually think XRP represents more than just the cryptocurrency. The people who are endlessly curious tend to find themselves in XRP.
The whole mission of our channel now is just really exposing the truth, giving people a platform where they can get that truth. The fact that people allow me into their lives from my channel, the fact that people participate and believe in what's happening here to come and participate in this event and be a real person in this place is absolutely remarkable.
Those judges saw the pitchforks and said, something's not right about what's happening right now.
What is the XRP Army? The XRP Army is a revolution. It's a revolution of individuals that are tired of the current system.
For the life of me, I know y'all watching, I just be finding it weird. Y'all just don't interact a lot. Like, that was a lot of information. What, are y'all shocked or something? What's really going on? Like, they just showed Vitalik Buterin, or Buterin, however you pronounce his last name, that he was a mascot. Instead, they used him for their mascot for Ethereum. And I remember when I was in the movie theaters, when I went and seen the screening for this in New York. Oh, man. I mean, the movie theater was just silent in shock. You know, it's a lot of things that we already knew, but it's the next thing when you finally get to see it in person. When you're actually seeing documentation, it's like the documents don't lie. It is what it is. Did y'all enjoy it? Like, where the participation at? Come on, people, where y'all at? And y'all see how YouTube and all these other channels do. I hear a lot of content creators complain as soon as they start talking about XRP on their channel, the views just went down. Like, they just post something on YouTube about XRP and it's like boom, 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 boom. So I mean, it is what it is. And that's why I give y'all the information. I told y'all, listen, there's so much stuff built on XRP that people don't know about. It's unfreaking believable. You know, I also realized I was the only one actually live streaming at the proper party, aka the Ripple party, the XRP party. And what I got to realize, That place was freaking packed. Over 3,000 people was there. Okay? And I just found it real strange. The majority of people knew nothing about getting Ripple stock. They didn't know nothing about Reaper Finance and a bunch of other cryptos that's like built. Because even when you go search it up, and I'm telling you, it's a rabbit hole. There is certain coins that give you XRP for holding the coins, and other coins that give you that other coin for holding that coin. And a lot of people thought, hey, it's going to be easy. That's going to be easy to look up. And I'm telling you, it's not. These are people that have been dealing with XRP, what is it, 2014 or however long, for a very, very, very long time. And they knew nothing about this. And when you start jumping in to the XRP ecosystem, the Ripple company and everything behind it, when it comes to the connections with government officials, this stuff is amazing. And these people, let me say it right now. A matter of fact, hold on. Let me fix my screen properly so you could see me. That's what I need to do. But as I was saying, they're making hella money right now on this XRP ledger. Look, I'm talking to y'all and I'm like, yo, any questions, anything? Nobody has nothing to say. I mean, gosh, I come on here and I do these live streams giving y'all this work, and like, y'all just watched that documentary. No questions? Like, and yo, this is why they do what they do and they get away with what they get away with. Remember, I told y'all, get the Crypto Pro Life, because I've learned a lot from them. Tell them Joel Benjamin 528 referred you. Listen, this is your last chance. I remember watching videos, and this is by the time Bitcoin already went up. Okay, it already skyrocketed. And I remember watching those videos and just thinking, wow, they was telling people back then, this is your last chance to gain generational wealth. You got, well, they didn't see a last chance. They was like, oh, this is generational wealth. This is going to change. There's so much videos, like with this dude. He was in his room, and I think he was excited when Bitcoin when it hit $100, I believe. And something like that. And he was just so excited. I had posted on my Instagram page, and then of course he made a remake of it. You know, he was in a studio, not his actual house. It's just so funny when you see it. You know, he brought nostalgia back. And I'm looking at y'all on here, and I tell people, I don't have to do this. Especially, I could just put out certain videos like most of the people do and keep it pushing. I don't have to really break it down. But this stuff needs to be broken down to the least common denominator. This is really amazing. A lot of people don't know that you're able to make money right now. Then I speak to very few people. They might know about Reaper, okay, but they don't know about the other stuff. And I notice when you try to dig up for this information, like I said, once Crypto Pro Life puts something up, right? Sometimes I'll dig up for the information on a certain coin, and I'm like, yo, what the hell? I'm not seeing like really nothing on it. Then I might get, you know, you might get particular coin, and when you look back in your wallet a month later, you see You got extra money in there and you're like, wait a minute, hold on. Or extra crypto, I should say. Extra XRP. And I'm like, wait a minute, what's this? Or it might be holding the next one. And you'll be like, wait, where did this come from? I know, you set up a trust line, but you didn't buy set asset yet. How come you have this much coins for that? There are people and institutions that's caking it right now. Okay? They are gaining money hand over fist. There are literally financial systems being played out on the XRP ledger right now. There's different NFTs. The prices is crazy. Certain ones, you could have a certain one and not even know, hey, I could stake it here. I could do this and collect interest. This is crazy to me. Amazing to me. Okay? Hold on. Let me... Hold on, y'all. Let me let my face be shown. Okay. And that's why I didn't notice anybody in the proper party. Matter of fact, let me see if I could pull that video up. Let me see. I didn't see nobody in the proper party even given, like, and I seen some big YouTubers there. I'm talking about XRP YouTubers and, big crypto YouTubers in general. And I'm like, yo, why is nobody filming the proper party, showing what's going on? At least give the people some of, that Lenny Kravitz concert. Man, Lenny did his day. Lenny did his thing. Nobody was expecting that. You know how much money Ripple probably had to dish out to get Lenny Kravitz? Anyway, let me share my screen so you see what I see. Lenny up there, I'm like, yo. Whole time I was like, hold up. Because I know when y'all watch the video, for those who haven't seen the video, let me tell you something. There was so much pause moments in that party. They had the arcade games. They had like unlimited drinks. And when I say drinks, I'm talking about some hard stuff. Unlimited. They had food. They had entertainment. But they had too many pause moments, man. It got this dude, I don't know if he's from Ukraine, Russia, Germany, one of them. And that's the next thing. It had people that came from all over the world. To even get a ticket, it was so rare and very limited, right? And literally, people from all over the world. And homeboy there, I'm like, yo, come on, man. Like, we talk. I'm like, yo, we don't do that in America. Kiss me on my cheek. I'm like, hey, yo. Like, the reason I didn't punch him in his face is because I didn't want to get kicked out. You see, when you start moving up there with the big dogs, then you got Lenny. And of course, I have the front, actually in the front. Listen, that whole party was weird. This is the first time I ever been someplace where I see the men and women are sharing the same bathroom. And there's 2 bathrooms, right? And they're partying in the bathroom. I'm not talking about they're just chilling. No, they're having a party in the bathroom. The bathrooms. I showed that in the video. Okay? this is the first time I ever been to a party where I see rich people and I guess you could say the common folk all partying together, like on the same floor. It had millionaires, billionaires there. I met John Deaton. Chat with him for a while. I gotta post up the picture of that too. I don't think I ever post up the picture of that. Okay? It was crazy. It was crazy. And that alcohol hit the people. And mind you, when you going up in there, they check your bag for any, you know, how do I say it? Because you know the guidelines on here. Any nose candy. And you know, the devil's grass, you know, as they call it. They was checking for that. Let me tell you something. And you know, them, you know, a pill or whatever. Let me tell you something. Them people in there was lit. They were higher than a kite. And there was a lot of stuff going on. Okay? And I'm talking about the wealthy people. All right? They even had a section for them on the balcony, and they still end up coming down, and they on the floor with everybody. It was lit. So let me show you this. If y'all didn't get to see it and what was going on, they gave out free t-shirts, hats, socks. You know, I end up getting all that. But I'm just going to show, and I'm like, yo, Ripple really got money. But yeah, as I was saying, contact Crypto Pro Life at gmail.com and let them know Joel Benjamin referred you. Listen, this is not the time for you to F this up. All right? You need to know what's going on and get what you have to get before it is too late. And that's the next thing. Y'all always wait till shit is too late the last minute. I know you had a good time. All that money in the room, energy had to be high. Yes, Zichia one. Yes, it was. Zichia one asks, unisex. The unisex bathroom. Yes, it was unisex. And when I was while I'm doing the live stream and I'm talking about the Ripple stock and everything else, people kept stopping me while I'm doing the live, and I had to send them the link because, yo, they did not know. There is so much about Ripple XRP that people don't know. That's why I said I like CryptoProLife at gmail.com. There was a lot of stuff I learned from them. And I'm telling you, at this point, you just have to want to be a brokey at this point. Okay? I see Tracy Natural put up, salute to Tracy Natural. Put up CryptoProLife.com. Yeah, referral code Joel Benjamin 528. Listen, and I know some people, y'all feel away. Oh, you know, he probably gonna get it back for that. I don't want it to put a hit. Yeah, we know haters watch the channel, but listen, hey, that's on you. They just gonna charge you more. You ain't gonna get the discount price. That's on you. So as you see, we're on Joel Benjamin 528. Right? This is my page. Not for nothing. You know how long I've been at 32,500 subscribers? Talk about manipulation and shadow banning. I noticed a lot of that changed, but hey, just a sidebar. And I ran into somebody out there in the streets this week, and she was like, yo, she stopped me. She was like, what's up, Joel Benjamin 528? And it was funny because a guy stopped her and, you know, he was trying to holler at her. You know, fine, she looked good. It's so funny. And she's like, oh, no, sorry. I'm on the phone with my husband. And I'm hearing her talking, but I'm not turning around to see who it is. They're behind me. So I'm there on my phone cryptoing, honestly, to tell you the truth. So we're about to cross the street. And as it crossing the street, I'm telling the dude, yeah, man, this crypto over here, blah, blah, blah. And then she was like, Joel Benjamin 528. And I knew her, and I was like, oh snap, I didn't know that was you. The funny part is the guy now is watching me hating, because he's like, you lied. You said you was on the phone with your husband. Now you talking up with this dude. So she was like, yo, check this out. You're not putting up nothing. I ain't seen nothing from you in a very long time. And I had to let her know, listen, YouTube, that's on YouTube. Okay? That's dealing with YouTube. Just so you know. So this is stuff for y'all to know. But anyway, she got their information and she went and she was like, oh wow, I've been missing a lot of videos. So you see, this was over a year ago. The Proper Party, Ripple, XRP, Ripple Labs, Lenny Kravitz, Brad Garlinghouse. That's the name of the video. If you notice, only 654 views. That's crazy. All right, let's go through some of it. That part. Oh, I don't want to get his performance there. Y'all could go check out that. And you see, he was up there a while too. All right. So nobody can say I ain't show you the whole thing. But look at this.
People want to hear about IPO. That's what they want to hear. Girl, you can't tell us she wasn't having a good time tonight. I'll get it for you. Don't worry.
So you see, they had the unlimited drinks.
This black bean.
They had the food.
Black bean burger slider. That shit is good.
Now I take you downstairs.
Wait. That's what I did.
They had the arcade games, all free.
It got like, see, and when you scroll down, it got more games. They playing, what's that, Pac-Man? Yeah, they playing Pac-Man. I don't know if it got Mrs. Pac-Man on there. See here, they was giving out the free shirts and whatnot. You see, XRP is not a security. You want another shirt? We're about to restart it. It's a good event, man. It's a good event. Oh, let me show y'all the bathrooms. Alright? I can't film too much in the bathroom. This is what it says on the bathroom. Hold on, where is that? So yeah, you'll know that this is the bathroom, people. Believe it.
Look at them.
Fancy as shit. Yeah, man.
You see how it's packed in there? You wouldn't even know you're going into the bathroom until you go even deeper in and turn, and you'll see the stalls and the urinals, and I'm like, yo, what? And that's just one of them. I showed the next one. So if y'all want and y'all have time, y'all could watch the video. Y'all see the name of it. You just go to Joel Benjamin 528 page, and in the search right here, type in XRP Proper Party. For those who haven't seen it, and you want to see it, you like Lenny Kravitz, you could watch that whole performance. I believe the video is like 2 hours and 6 minutes long. You know, just so you could get a taste and a feel. Is there any questions? Is there any questions? I watch, Ebony Eyes said, I watch part of Joel's live in the Proper Party. Oh yeah, listen. If you watched it, you know it was good. Let me see. Tracy Natural said, we know what it is, Brother Joel. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, Ebony Eyes, you say you was doing your house chores while watching. Okay. Anybody else on here? No comments, nothing. Okay. All right. No problem. Give y'all a chance to ask questions. I'm gonna give y'all a little more time. Obviously, that's well, that's it. But yeah, so as I was saying, you're gonna want to contact Crypto Pro Life. I don't know how much times to say it. I don't even like saying it no more, man. I'm like, y'all are really missing out. Like, y'all see what's going on? You seen how long I've been putting y'all on to XRP? When others were, I remember I was going on panels and everybody was like, yeah, but they're getting sued by the SEC. Those same people coming back like, oh, yo, you know. Yo, yeah. Y'all led y'all followers astray. Now y'all telling them to get XRP. Y'all like Silver Surfer XRP dick riding. Surfing like a surfboard. That's what y'all doing. I know people might have said I shouldn't have said that, but it is what it is. It's the truth. Light and Love says, salute Joel. What happened at the after party? I don't know what you're talking about. Hey, yo, the after party, huh? The after party? I don't know what you're talking about. What I do know is I had to get up out of there. Oh man, I got stories from being up in there. It had this one lady, and I'm watching Lenny. I'm like, yo, I know this woman ain't trying to wind up on me. And her man right there. And she dancing. I'm like, y'all gonna see. I got it on video. And I'm like, yo, what is she doing, yo? And the dude, he just watching me smiling. I was like, yo, I got some freaks up in here. I need to get the hell up out of here. Soon as this shit is over, I need to be out. Let me see. So what's the real status of ETH? Sounds like they're in trouble. No, they're not. Maybe you wasn't there earlier when I said, yeah, I already seen signs of Ethereum working hand in hand with XRP. Listen, it is what it is. That's just how it goes. Now, I could be wrong, but since 2019, I ain't been wrong since. The only thing I've been wrong about was what time was the price prediction. And y'all should be glad. Thank God I was wrong on that. Gave y'all time to stock up on some more XRP. Light and Love says, not crypto freaks. Were there any baby oil involved? Yo, it was wild in the bathrooms. That's all I'm gonna say. And people that watch when I was making, because I made a few lives now. I didn't just do one live. I think I went live, 3 times? 4 times? People that was watching know. And then of course I showed the Lenny Kravitz one. You know, the whole thing with Lenny Kravitz. But yeah, anybody who's in the know and was watching Joel Benjamin 528 live, y'all know I was showing y'all a lot that was going on. Okay? I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't hide it from you. I showed y'all what time it was. Let me see if I could find the next video. I definitely went live on that one. Try finding somebody else having it live. Just try. Take your time too. You're not gonna find it. Not gonna find it. Let me see. Any other questions? Nope. All right. I guess I did my job. Like I said, y'all contact Crypto Pro Life. They have a huge amount of good stuff on there. Y'all don't want to miss out on that. I'm telling y'all now. And some people that want to hit me up, want to contact me. Let me put that out there. 929-374-3828. That's 929-374-3828. These days of going live. And if y'all want to hook a brother up, because some of y'all just be wanting this information and don't even be looking out for the kid, but that's alright. Trust me, that's alright. The Cash App, $symbol Joel Benjamin 528. Salute to the international audience. Salute to the domestic. Peace.